bringing you an inspiring personal message to help you unlock creating and living a life full of energy and happiness. And today I'm really excited to share with you my podcast with Natasha Evans. So Natasha and I met about a year and a half ago through a mentor program, and I'm really excited to welcome her on because we really delved into the mindset, fitness, and so much more. So I'll let Natasha introduce herself to you and enjoy. Welcome, Natasha, and thank you for joining me. Really appreciate your time. So, as always, what I do with most of my podcasts is I get you guys to share your stories because it's your language and it's your words. So, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
So, firstly, it's lovely to be on your podcast, Natalie. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for having me. And yes, so my journey, obviously, we've met through the mastermind, and I would say that my journey of real massive change pretty much started a little bit before that. So although we sort of connected last year, my journey started 2 years ago for me at 45. So you could say it's a midlife crisis, but it was actually through my husband actually being very ill with cancer, and nearly losing his life in the operating theatre, that actually really did sort of change my mindset on things. Certainly on the, you have so many days, but are you doing the most with it? And I think that sort of ticked something in my brain. And I've always wanted to do something a little bit different, and felt like it was under my nose. I felt like there was something I wanted to give, but I wasn't sure what it was. I've always enjoyed my fitness, and I then suddenly decided, well, why not become a personal trainer? So I first Googled, am I too old at 45?
Yeah.
And then I had to do a massive journey of self-development, of myself, personal development, of getting some skeletons and cobwebs out of getting the mindset in the right place to embark on something that I felt was going to have a lot of hurdles and obstacles in front of me. And the first thing I had to do was work on me, because I hadn't done any particular studying, and getting back into that zone of actually qualifying. So, obviously there's a few exams that you've got to do. They're not intense, but I sort of was scarred a bit by exams and from my earlier years. So it was a real fear factor to put myself in that environment. And that was the first start of getting used to being uncomfortable. And from that way, I say the last 2 years, the saying is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I've been that for the last 2 years. And I passed, and that was such a huge personal achievement for me. And then the next step was obviously then to now take on a whole new role, while still juggling everything that I was doing. This wasn't like I'd carved this out and gave something up. I was still doing my other job. Still a mum, obviously still a wife, all of those other things, daughter, sister. They would say I've probably not been as great family member on things, especially last Christmas when I had to work in the gym. So that didn't go down too well. But you have to make sacrifices for things that you really truly believe in. And I just was so passionate that I found my vocation. So I started working in a gym and learned from the ground up, really. Always keen to learn. And I don't think you're ever too big, too old, too great to learn something new from someone at any level. So yeah, that was it, going into the gym and working. I've got so much to learn, but I've got so much to give, and I just want to share my journey with men and women, but mostly to empower women that age is just a number. And that came back from me having done my first ever marathon last year, and doing another one. That was London 2019. And doing another marathon 8 days later, which I was told you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. And from experienced runners, and I wouldn't have said, but I did it. And it's just about proving that you can do anything you want to, if you believe it. If you believe it, you can achieve it. and you've got that resilience and tenacity to keep going when things knock you down.
I think all of that is so inspirational, and thank you for sharing that, because it's amazing sometimes that some people don't want to be vulnerable, but how much you can feel inspired and empowered, and almost you can do that for yourself a bit and surprise ourselves when we say our stories and think, wow, actually, yeah, I do really believe in this. I am really passionate. And you and I know from working together that, I think we both inspire one another, we both empower one another. And I love what you say around getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And tell me more about some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, I guess, in the last year, I guess, with the mastermind as well, which we worked together on in the business.
I think there's so many challenges, and the thing that I realise more now is that you look up to people. You know, there's a saying of surround yourself with great people, and these people that inspire you, and you do put them on a pedestal, and you feel that they're up there and you're here. But the more that I do the things that I'm doing and the obstacles that I hit, I realise that we're all just normal people, and success is measured purely by the people that don't give up. And what's interesting is that I feel so normal, and dare I say it, have struggled with anxiety, confidence, self-esteem, all of these issues. This is why I so want to sort of share my journey, to say that I'm doing all this not from someone that's got her stuff together. It's actually fear, and facing it. And what I realize is that I'm getting told more and more by people, oh, you're inspiring, and I'm like scratching my head and going, I'm just what? I'm just me, I'm just normal. And then I'm getting it more and more and more, and it's like, whoa, like this is weird. Like I'm just like you, but I'm just trying to overcome obstacles. And I've had quite a few big wobbles, and I think like listening to the greats of, say, Mel Robbins, that she can talk with such depth and meaning because she's been there. And that's the point. It's not that these people have just studied or they're just God's gift. It's because it comes from a place of hurt, a place of lack, or but they've had that determination and tenacity to overcome it, and they just want to share their message. And essentially that's what I want to do, because and the thing is, I realize that you always feel that it's just you that is hitting these hard times or the struggles, and that everyone else has an easier life. And I think like the mastermind has massively helped me to understand when people, because a lot of people won't be honest to be vulnerable, it's an ego thing. But I wear my heart on my sleeve, and perhaps I'm too honest sometimes because I've done like podcasts about imposter syndrome and stuff. But when you start realizing that everyone feels it, but just some people cover it up more, that's quite liberating, because otherwise you feel a bit like a freak. Sometimes you feel that it's just you. And it's nice to know when you hear, not because you want to hear someone suffering, but to go, oh, like, well, it didn't work for you either. Or like, because you just think, oh, it's just me and I'm not good enough, and and you want to stop. But it's actually hearing that no, it happens to everyone, and you have to keep on going. You have to just pick yourself back up and start again, dust yourself off and carry on.
There's so much within that. It just really reminds me of, I'm massive into Stoicism. I've done it for the last, someone introduced me to the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday about, now it must be like 3 or 4 years ago now. I've read it every single day, and if you haven't got a book, it's basically snapshots and excerpts from Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism. So it's looking at, I was talking to my mum about it the other week actually as well, that it's around taking control of your life, the perception you have around things, how you choose to see things, and I guess more question yourself opposed to others in how do you choose to react to that opposed to putting it on others, and really looking at yourself and that self-awareness. So emotional intelligence, that's what really resonates with me. So yeah, fundamentally it's all around your will, your perception, and getting clarity on everything in life. And that's where that self-awareness taps into. So yeah, it's an amazing book, and he always talks about he's got another book called The Obstacle is the Way, and around opportunities and obstacles. And I guess, you know, it's very much apparent in the world we're in nowadays, and probably will be for the future of our normal, but around 2020 with COVID, and just, you really see a complete difference in people. There is people that see opportunities when times are tough, when there's conflict, when there's challenges, and you see people that just see obstacles and they're very negative, is an initial default in behaviour, I think, as well. And you see it in people, or like we were talking about before the podcast about a few things that have happened to us the last few days, and you instantly think, how am I going to choose to react to this? Is how we look at things now. Maybe 2 years ago we would have been like, well, for goodness sake, why is it me? And that's it, my day's done. So, and there's a real difference then in how we approach the whole rest of our days and our weeks and everything, and that will impact the relationship we have with someone in the day, and the kind of conversations we'll have, and how we'll feel about things. So there's so much off of that. And I think, like you say, it becomes the journey, that it's not, people talk a lot around, you know, thinking about they want stuff yesterday. I see that in a lot of younger generations now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't mean that rudely, but I definitely do.
We're in the now generation though, so like as you say, it's not a criticism, it's just the way that life has shifted with technology, so everything is obtainable very quickly, so that does make people think that they can have everything, and as we know, like, some things you can't have straight away, and they're not great unless you've worked for them, but
yeah,
it's a trap.
I love that. So the mastermind that we're talking about is with Chris Bierman, who was my mentor coach at the very start of the mastermind. I think I was one of his first clients. And then Natasha joined us, I think, maybe 9 months after I joined.
Yeah, no, November last year. Yeah.
Longer than that, yeah. And one of the key parts that he always fed back to me was that I was very patient. And part of that's because it's just enjoying the process. I know that things aren't going to be overnight. And again, like when I did all my coaching qualifications, I took 4 years doing those because I wanted to learn about things. I wanted to give things a go, you know, that were completely, like, I had no idea about, had never thought in that way. And then kind of think, right, let's now, because you can learn everything, but physically doing something is very different. That's why they make you do the practicals and you get assessed on things. So I then did the assessments, and then it was like, this was great. This is, you know, this is what you could work on. This is what you could do better. So I love that process of going and learning something, giving it a go, getting the feedback, giving it a go again, working, you know, giving myself the time space. Sometimes people are like, how quick can you do the qualification? It's like, well, why don't you just enjoy it, the process, and see where it takes you? Because you're going to have to implement things. You're going to then have to take action, and you have to build on them. And then you're going to, again, by giving something a go, you're going to think, well, that worked this time, that didn't. And that's the mastering of the craft part, and the discovery element, and being curious about things. That's what I love about learning. And so I think that when you look at things like that, and you are part of things with people that are in the same mindset and outlook, that you can then, the challenges that come your way, you see differently, and you can overcome them, because you know that actually you use that same mindset that you would have to a struggle you've had before, and you just think that worked really well, that didn't work so well, and you draw on those strengths. And again, that's that coaching reality part, to then implement into, right, what do I need to do here? I really want to be better at this. I can see the vision. I know where I'm going. And it was interesting what you said about, we were talking about the struggles there and the pain that people can be in places. I've done a bit of research this week around, is it more that people want to come from the pain? Obviously we talk pain and pleasure. Or is it that they're more compelled towards a pleasure? Now, I started that kind of thinking through this week by thinking, for me, in my past fitness journey, and I guess my drive, it's always around a pleasure. I'm very much driven to a vision, because I'm a visual learner. I see what I want, and I know what that will look like, and I can break down what it will feel like when I'm there, who's in my world. I can see it, versus the pain. I'm like, I don't know that it's not that I'm not drawn as such out of a pain. It's like that's because I'm like, it's not, I guess maybe I'm fortunate that I'm not in such a pain that it's like it's life or death, do I have to get out of it scenario. It's a, you know, my life, I'm quite, you know, I guess I'm very nicely comfortable that I appreciate what I have. I show, you know, and I guess that's maybe why gratitude's been so important to me the last few years. And maybe my place, maybe I feel different pain compared to a few years ago. So maybe that's part of the journey. But I think for me, it's more around a pleasure, and that I love life, and I'm just looking at the journey part and where I want to be and just growing and learning. So I don't know, what's your view on, like you touched on, the pain versus the pleasure element, and has that changed for you?
Firstly, I'd like to say I love your approach. It's very intelligent, and the patience part, because I feel like it's almost like an enlightenment that I've reached. That sounds a bit kooky or whatever, but what
Very
I'm saying is that I feel like what the hell was I doing
yeah.
for the last 45 years of my
Yeah.
life, because what I'm thinking and feeling now is so different.
Yeah.
And I like to have thought that I was quite you know, a forward thinking or open person, but I just am so excited by the potential of what, you know, I can do and achieve and learn, that actually then I sometimes want to run before I can walk. And where you said about that patience and enjoying the moment, because it is the journey. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people get caught up in the end destination, but there is never an end destination. So
Right. Yeah.
you've got to get the head round that you're enjoying the process. But what happens is sometimes, because you have a big vision, you want to get there, and then it can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
and you can try to be doing too much, and sometimes it's doing a little bit less to understand and enjoy it more. So for me, a big key learning is to slow down. That I've got all the time in the world. Even I'm saying that at 47, yes, I have, because again, my mindset is different. And it was something I was saying to someone yesterday, and she thought this was quite inspiring. But I said to her, you know, like, I have this vision, I'm going to be fit and healthy at 90, and that idea is cemented, and that's there. But I have even bigger visions of what I might be achieving at 90, something fitness related. You
Yeah.
know, I could be like the first 90-year-old Olympian or something. I don't, you know, I'm dreaming big. But you need to dream big to even have that,
Yeah.
you know, direction. But at the same time, you've got to slow it down and just enjoy the process. And, you know, and that's one key point that I'm learning. But as for pain and pleasure, I would say, yeah, I mean, naturally people, it's a push or a pull, isn't it? And what works, and everyone's psychology is different. But I think mine has come from an internal pain,
Yeah.
not anything that's been done to me, but something that I've read and learned is how we deal with situations. I didn't realize so much how things are hardwired from such a young age,
Yeah.
perceptions and views and points of view, and
I
how
think
you feel about yourself.
we're very defined by behaviours and psychology around that age in terms of how we choose to be.
Yeah, and that gets hardwired without your realization, and then you become, because you then, those things have happened. And it can be something so simple, and this is like, this is sort of eureka to me, of actually understanding this, because now I finally understand it. I can do something about changing it, because we can change it.
Absolutely.
But it's not what is something been done to you, it's how you've perceived an environment. And I'm quite sensitive. You're talking about emotional intelligence. I would like to think that I've got very good emotional intelligence. I'm quite sensitive and perceptive to other people's thoughts and feelings. So I will take on an energy or a feeling very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's my issue, not anyone else's. So then I think when I was younger, perhaps I've picked up things and I've taken them, and then I've taken the wrong conclusion from that energy and then attached it to me. And that's what's caused a lot of issues through my life, that has, you know, contributed to the lack of confidence, the
Mm.
low self-esteem, not good enough, lack of self-belief. And what I'm understanding is that you know, we aren't wired by our genetics. We actually, there's more to us with epigenetics and our environmental factor. We will naturally default, as you said, you know, about that place of protecting ourselves. That is a natural default for survival in humankind. And a natural default for our brain is to go back into automatic pilot. So if they're the processes that you've lived with all your life, if you take your eye off the ball for a second, you will go back into that default setting.
Yeah.
And it's really important to pull yourself back out every day, because if you do that every day and you change that over time, that can be your new default setting. So, you know, when people go, oh, it's in my genes, or oh, you're turning out like your mum or your dad or your whatever,
Yeah.
or I can't lose weight because of I'm sorry, there's an element of it, but it's very small.
Yes.
There's so much more. What it is actually about being mindful and present, and stopping yourself falling back into that default, and pulling yourself back out. And if you do it enough times, then you're recreating a new default. And that's what I'm trying to do for myself, because I do fall back, we naturally do, but every little step that I do of something that's out of my comfort zone is slowly shifting me as an individual, that I may not see it directly, but others are. You know, and it's only when you look back, because you always feel the same, you don't naturally feel any different, but you'll look back to say, you know, even save me 6 months ago, I know how much I've moved forward and grown, you know, from that mindset.
And it's so important that you recognise that in yourself. It absolutely is key, I think. And it's interesting. I think one of the things, just to bring it to life a bit, that's when we talk about habits and things, is I always draw people to, you know, when I'm working with a client, say, right, let's just take the example of brushing your teeth, because everybody knows what that means, and we can have a laugh about that. But it's so ingrained in you, you don't even think about it. The same as, or riding a bike, or driving your car, if you drive, you don't think about what you're doing. It just happens, subconsciously just happens. And you have to just be really careful that and I've done a lot of work on habits recently for myself, in terms of which ones aren't serving me, because it's going to make a major difference in my daily routine and how I get the best out of my days. And there's some things I can do behaviourally, and or habitually is a word rather, that aren't great. And you have to, like you say, you have to tap into those and take a step and understand what's the reason, what's the thoughts that are coming off of that as well, and how do I go about changing them. And I think what I've seen is the last 9 months, and it stemmed from having time off of burnout, but I had to take time off and really look at things in my life and think, everything's great, I shouldn't be feeling empty like I feel, yet I do. Why is that? What's the reason? What do I need to change about this? So I know the triggers so it doesn't happen again. 2, then you can help others as well. But you need to change what's hardwired as a habit, and you can do it. It's just really hard. And I think that's where we talk about be vulnerable, and everyone says be kind sometimes, or people say it, but they don't. Then they go and do something, you think, well, that's not the kindest behaviour. So it's, don't just say it, actually live by that in your actions and what you do. And you have to be kind to yourself with that start. And you have to give yourself, cut yourself a break. And when I've done fitness shoots over the last few years and stuff, and I guess my pain was very much that I was always overweight. I never felt like I looked good in the mirror. Well, I have confidence, absolutely, but I'd look in the mirror and the thoughts I have about myself weren't always, you look amazing, for sure. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong that we say that in ourselves. Like, I look at myself now and think, like, why shouldn't I be looking in the mirror and saying, you look really good, I feel really good? It energizes you, empowers you yourself, again, starting, and you can be like this with others. So yeah, I think that pain was mine, but it got to a point where it's like, enough of that pain, I'm going to work on it. Hence why I got into fitness myself, and that journey is kind of, that's how my journey started with things, really, and coaching and everything. So I guess then that's where I see the vision, and that's where I want to be. So I don't accept thinking that was okay anymore, how I was, because I don't want to be that. I guess I disassociate, and a lot of that's come through some therapy sessions as well, that's not you, that little girl, and because they tap into your past such a lot. And I had RTT therapy, which is rapid transformational therapy. So a lady called Marissa Peer. And it had come through. I'd done my own therapy coaching privately, and then I just thought, you kind of think when you start therapy, oh, 6 sessions I've done, whoopie do. It doesn't happen like that, unfortunately. So I then went and found RTT, and what RTT is absolutely phenomenal. They put you in this state where you're literally lying down and you're hypnotized. So I always describe it as like the sixth sense, where it's like your body's lying there, you've got your eyes closed, and somebody's asking you questions, and you're kind of like in this world of in between awake, not awake. It's the most surreal feeling in the world. It was absolutely phenomenal. I remember raving about it to my parents. Even my mum was like, oh, I think I need that. But you are in this in between world, and what comes out, she was asking questions around my past as a kid, and what would you're walking into a room, little Natalie's there, what would she be doing, what would you be talking to her about? And what was coming out actually at points made me even cry. It was absolutely insane to think about, or to experience. But so much of that, and that type of, again, the rewiring of how you see things, that is not you anymore. That is who you were. You are who you choose to become, and again, that's where you can be very clear on therapy. Past coaching is moving forward, and I was really clear that clients, because I think they think that we tap into the past and we don't. And it's right, that's that. What are you going to do to move forward? How are you going to then become who you want to be? Be, do, have. I was listening to The Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv, I think, yesterday, and he was saying exactly that. People because it's a millionaire mindset, so it goes, people that are rich think be, do, have. People that are poor think have, do, be. So I think I said that the right way, or have, be, do. So it was really interesting to think about how all of this can draw together, and the way, again, it's ultimately the way you choose to see things. So I guess I don't really associate, that was a pain, but I'm like, that's not me now. This is me. And I think, again, you go back to that part of, we have to understand ourselves, and again, draws on the emotion, the self-awareness part. Who are we as people? And that's why when you start out on any journey, I think people think sales, money, what's going to get me there quickly, get a coach, all that, they'll have all the answers. It's like, well, no, coaching is about you. You have the answers. But you have to find out your vision, your values, your mission, your goals, who you are as a person, before you can even think about doing anything more. Because I actually think that if you don't do that exploration and you're curious about that at the start of the journey, you'll get hooked somewhere on the journey where actually it would have served you better if you just took time at the start to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's amazing. There's so many points on that to try and pick up on. I mean, obviously the therapy side of things, I think, again, like that hypnosis, it's changing the brainwaves. So you're slowing the brainwaves down, and you're tapping into, and that's why you can hit into, obviously, parts of the subconscious. I love where, so some people say about law of attraction and the mindset, but I came into this really start through reading The Power of Habit, I believe it was, or You Are the Placebo, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So it was where neuroscience meets that sort of law of attraction. So that because some people don't agree with it at all, and because it's not just, oh, you can put out a comment, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire, or I'll give Jim Carrey, for example. He actually manifested the check, and when he was going to get it, when he signed Dumber and Dumber. Yeah. And he did a very, very good motivational speech at one of the universities. And then you're like, wow, I didn't realize he was into that. You have to take action. It's not going to just happen, but it's about that you actually have more power than you realize. We don't use an nth of our brain, and it's the fact that the brain doesn't know the difference between real and not real. Yeah. So you can manifest it, like when you were talking about seeing that in and actually plan that out. That's exactly what I did for my marathon. I visualized every step to a certain extent. Obviously, I didn't know the route. Obviously, I know the route of London, but I didn't know it exactly. But what I did know was that I immersed myself in that from every single day, of that I was going to complete it, how I was going to feel. I was going to have the medal. I was going to be holding it, and it, obviously, the medal at the end is not the celebration isn't the medal. It's the journey of who you've become along the way. And I was suffering really quite badly with some injuries in my taper, which I thought was going to be the easiest part of the whole training, which actually proved to be the most difficult part from a mental perspective, mindset, and from an injury perspective. And I was having like needles stuck in me, and I wasn't in a great place, so much so that the physio was like, "Are you going to do this?" And then she just saw my face and she went, "Right, okay, right, let's work on you." There was that absolute clarity of determination, like, even if I'm going to crawl, I am doing it. There is absolutely no way I'm not doing this. And when you start putting that in, then you can't fail to achieve, because the brain doesn't know the difference. And I just think, like, you tapped on so many things there. We just got to not get caught back up into who we were. We can be who we want to be, but we have to remain consistent about it, and we have to be patient, as you said. And it's hard, because it's a bit like there was someone that said about fitness, it's you've got to pay rent. It never stays done. So every day, or however often you train, you have to pay rent to keep that up. And it's the same with the mindset. So I find that when I start to dip, or then it feels like things are a bit more overwhelming again, I realize that I've not tapped into, because I do meditate. Whatever that is for everyone is different. Maybe mine is actually, it just helps me get to sleep, or gets me in the right mindset in the morning. But if I've not done that, or if I've not listened to motivational speakers, now again, some people go, "Oh, it was rubbish." Yeah, it is rubbish if you're not going to take on board that and implement it. You can read as many books, and we can get busy being busy, and I know that that's something that I have done, but hopefully I'm still always taking something from what I'm reading or listening to, because not only that, I'm trying to put it into my life, but I'm also trying to impart that to my clients and the people around me. So there's a level of that, but I do know there's a difference. You have to do it regularly. It's like having a dog has to be walked every day. You have to work on your mind every day. It never stays done. And that's the point. And as you grow, you'll learn and hopefully become a better human being.
I think that's really interesting that, I think some people either think you get skills or mindset gaps. And I think when you want a coach, you want somebody that actually can support you with all of that, and understand that it's not clearly defined that there's just, you go down one route. For me, they are very much about package, and it's creating a lifestyle, or you are creating what you want in terms of every day, and you can't easily just define those separate. So it was interesting, I guess, the practicalities of what you're talking about there, the fact that being productive, yes, we love listening to audibles and doing things like mindfulness because we need that. We notice in ourselves the difference if we don't have that, because it serves us. But there are also, like we just said, the practical parts that don't just hook onto every audible because it makes you feel good, or go to every course because there's people that just sign up to course after course after course, to coach after coach after coach. They don't have any kind of, they're not clear, probably they need more clarity at the start of, what am I going to get from that? What, like you just say, what can I take that, it's knowledge is power, but only when you apply it and you take action on it. So I think there's that part. And I had that kind of mic drop moment when someone said about, because you listen to a podcast doesn't mean you're productive. And I was like, yeah, that's spot on. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You have to then think out of that. There's parts that I'm hearing that actually could work for me and that doesn't work for me, or am I, be comfortable that sometimes you do just want to listen to things in leisure. And, I don't watch lots of TV, but sometimes if I just want to watch a bit of Netflix, it's because it is that mind part. I'm not thinking about anything. That's that moment in time for me where I'm doing that. And I'm big on, I guess, bring this in practically when we create you know, when I look at my planners for the week, and I know we've done a lot of work with you guys on it, that when you're creating your time schedules, so it's where is your downtime? Opposed to, you know, working on your perfect day, work on your perfect week and think, what is, and I've said this a lot before, the things that I'm going to do that's downtime to me. One of my things is the cinema, or just, like I said, just watching Netflix. Like those I have to get in, seeing friends and family. Like you said, we know there's going to be sacrifices at times. We're conscious and we're aware of that, but we still have to get in the odd bit. Or if we're not going to do it for a certain time space, what does that time space look like? Because otherwise you can just get on a cycle and you realise actually you feel you're missing out, and then that's when you get things like you say, the overwhelm, you start procrastinating, you then start having self-doubts. Why am I doing this? What's the point? And yeah, I think those are, then you can get in those cycles quite quickly, can't you?
Yeah, I think you've hit on all of those points that I have hit on, because it's quite like procrastination for one. It's not laziness. It's procrastination is really born of two things. Either it's something you don't want to do or something you fear. And
Yeah.
I've hit both of those. You know what your perfect day or your perfect week should be, but then you don't actually do it. And that's one of my biggest Achilles heels at the moment to rectify, of being more structured.
Yeah.
That it's not that I'm not disciplined, and it's not that I won't work hard, but it's that procrastination, and actually focus. So there was a lot this week about and I think this is where lockdown probably may have affected a lot of people. It certainly has me, in that you're in a different environment, a different situation.
Yeah.
So a work is very structured if you're going to that said place, whereas if you're then working from home, you've got to really exert a lot of discipline. So it's not to say that if anything, I was like, everyone's going, oh, I'm in lockdown and furloughed, and and I was working even harder, and I was working really hard before then, and I just upped my game. I was, not, but stupidly. So I was working too long and probably not productively, because I hadn't. And this is something to step back sometimes, to realize that you've got to slow down and that's where I had that overwhelm and hit, a bit of a wall, shall we say, like your burnout. And I think that does happen, certainly like in the PT world. And had to sort of reassess, but I had to pull back first. Because I just was working all the time. But was that productive? No, probably not. Was it efficient? No, probably not. But I wasn't giving myself, and even now I'm like, I've got to be more disciplined to break with work and pleasure, because I absolutely am so passionate about it. It's like I do it all the time. So whether it's reading a book about something so that I can impart some knowledge, or listen to a podcast that I'll use, or do some work on something, none of it feels like work.
Yes.
And that's what makes it hard, because
you
don't want to stop.
I remember actually when it was a while ago, and you shared with the coaches that you would try and get one of the calls, but you weren't sure because it was your son's birthday. And I remember saying to you, like, Natasha, just go and enjoy it. Switch off. It's really important that you do that.
Yeah. So that's hard. It is hard.
It is hard. No, I feel that as well. And especially when you, like you say, you love what you do, you want to help people, and I find I don't think it's probably like you say, it's not the procrastination as such, it's the focus that I get so many ideas, and I'm like, I could go there, well, let me get that down, and then I write it down, and I'm like, oh, let me just check that, and I just get then into a spiral of doing bits and bobs, opposed to, and again, there's a great book called The One Thing, Gary Keller, just do the one thing. And I notice it sometimes myself, I feel I'm being really efficient with my time, and I look at my browser and it's got like 10 tabs open. I'm like, how is this productive, efficient, whatever? It can't be, surely. So I have to again rein myself into, I guess what's helped me is getting really clear on my days, and I block out each hour each day, and just, I'm not saying there's something every hour, but it's maybe 2 hours on this, 3 hours on this. So I work out when I'm going to train, when I'm going to do everything. So then I feel at the end of the day, I'm like, what do I want to get to and be saying to myself at the end of the day? And if I get there, great. And if I don't, it's like, okay, well, I need to probably change something. What could that be? So Yeah, I think it's
I think there's one point in there is understanding you've got to figure out what works for you. So
yeah,
there's 2 points. One, I think investing in a coach or a mentor is absolutely a no-brainer to help you, because they help you find your blind spots or the things that you don't want to admit to,
yeah.
and will help you
It's an asset.
keep accountable. And it's the same from a fitness perspective. As a coach,
Yeah,
we'll never really sort of push ourselves as hard, as someone else will, or potentially get the most out. But the other point is as well to not feel, and this is something I'm only just starting to understand, that there's, like, whilst you can map out every hour of your day because X person does that, or you could say, right, it's 5 tasks I'm going to get done because Y does that, or I've structured my week because someone else does that. You have to find what works for you,
yes,
because sometimes otherwise you're trying to implement a system that is a bit alien to you, and it doesn't sit, and then you fail, and then you feel bad because you failed because you can't do it.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot to be said of learning to find your own way within
yeah,
picking up that knowledge, and feeling that you can, like, giving yourself permission. I think that's the one. Well, this is what I'm going to do, and break, and that's liberating, giving yourself permission,
yeah,
and not being held to, because I've done the right, well, let map my day from like 5 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night. Well, I failed catastrophically because my brain just doesn't work like that in hour segments. And then that made me feel bad because I didn't do it. um, and then or something else, right? Well, I'm going to have a to-do list and I'm going to tick that off, and I've put too many things on, so then I haven't, I feel bad because with
mm,
myself because I haven't. And then it's actually, no, hold on a minute, just tell yourself, right, okay, I'm going to, like, what works for you, right? I'm going to go and put my arse to anchor and do some work on something for 30 minutes or an
yeah,
hour. It's doable,
yeah.
and that's going to work for me to enable me to get and feel better, and that's the going forward part. But find what works for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know from where we do sales as well, it's kind of, you need to tell people what they need to do. You have to, and I absolutely see that. But then I also think that when you're looking at the coaching aspect of things, and again, it's, there's no right or wrong. Do what works for you. Do exactly that, what works for you, and you have to find that. And I think some people rock up to coaching thinking you're going to have the answers and tell them what they need to do. But the empowerment comes from the fact that we can help you get there quicker than on your own, and close that gap from A to B. But you actually have the answers. You know what's right for you. No one knows you better than you. That's why when language is so powerful when coaching. To say, I'm really big on when people say, oh, I understand, it's like, you don't ever understand because you aren't that person. You can have empathy and sympathy, but an understanding is very, very different. So the use of that word has to be, again, really clear with people. And again, that's why when we do coaching, I do a lot of coaching with one-to-one, and I don't assume anything. It's, what does that mean to you? Define what success is to you, define what happiness is to you. And there isn't a right or wrong. If someone thinks success is money to them, that's there for them to consider and for them to explore. It's not for me to say, well, actually it means this, because we all have a different association, because that's where we embrace, we're all different, and that's our strengths and the experiences of where we've come from. And yeah, that's why I think coaching is so powerful, and I love it. So yeah, I guess going on from that, and you talking about, you just said actually coaching's so powerful as well, and I know why you've invested in it, and I guess I can assume it could be a tip for success for you, but I'm not going to make that assumption as a coach. But what would be your 3 tips for success?
Well, undoubtedly, it's the saying, surround yourself with great people, or you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I often say that I'm incredibly grateful to be, and that doesn't have to be in the physical sense, so that's, you obviously, that can be in a network, that
Yeah,
can be what you listen to, what you absorb. But there's something about you never want to be the top in anything you do, because then you are in the wrong circle or the network. You need to be, yeah, you need to be uncomfortable, because
yeah,
then you're going to be able to grow. And by God, I've been uncomfortable, massively so. And it's finding that balance where it doesn't absolutely knock the wind out of you completely, the point that you give up, but slowly come back. So it's definitely surround yourself with those good people. I think another tip is to act mindfully, like be present and think about, stop, life, as you said, so fast and we want everything yesterday. Sometimes we need to just accept where we are and be present, and we miss so much because the brain misses so much because we're not. So it's just investing a little bit of time to be a bit more mindful, to watch things, to see things, because you may find that you'll see something completely different. Not that you'll know the difference, but an opportunity or something will present itself that could have been there before, but you just missed it because you weren't mindful. And that doesn't sound kooky, but it just means slow down and just be present. Don't be ruminating over what did or didn't happen yesterday, and not be so fixated in the future that you're not living now, because as they say, the present is a gift, or the gift is a present. And what would be the final tip? Don't give up. You'll hit hard times, everyone does, but the people that achieve success, I believe, are just the people that have just kept on putting one foot in front of the other. And I said that to a friend when I was like marathon training. It's very simple and it sounds so stupid, but she actually took some solace from it and said it was really, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. It's as simple as that. Just don't stop. You may have to move, and you can't fixate on where that end goal is, because it's not set in stone. You have an idea, but be fluid.
That's exciting,
but just keep
right?
keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't stop.
Amazing. Look, you're so inspiring. You get me. I could talk to you for hours, honestly. Where can people find you, lovely?
So I have a podcast as well, the Planted Mindset Podcast. It'd be lovely to share this episode on my podcast as well, to inspire and motivate as many people, but especially women, and certainly anyone that's sort of my age and above. Like, age is just a number. So that you can find me on there, on Instagram. I'm on Instagram for NBE Fit PT, and I also have my website, www.nbefit.co.uk.
Going back to the start, you said, am I too old at 45? Answer that yourself.
Never. And the thing is, I've spoke to another personal trainer, and the point was that I put it very quickly. It's a bit like actors, like, so suddenly, like, a really attractive guy, or when it happens less for the guys, but a woman is suddenly out of her prime for an acting role. Well, hold on a minute, do we stop watching films with older people? No. So, like, is fitness going to stop? I think in COVID, if anything, it's proved that people want to be fit for life, whether they are 50, 60, 70, 80, they still want to be fit. So, I will be that person supporting those individuals when I'm there and leading by example.
Superb. What a way to end it. And again, a huge thank you to Natasha for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I genuinely love my time with you because I learned so much. And thank you to you for listening too. If you haven't yet listened to my podcast from last week, it was The Reality of a Pandemic and Wellbeing. So I highly recommend you check that out. And as usual, I'll pop a little link into the episode description for you. Please connect with me on all my social media. I'm at nataliepottscoaching.co.uk. Everywhere apart from my Facebook community, I'm at that, and that is A Living a Vibrant Life. And I love to hear from you. So drop me a question, share this episode, drop me a message, and make sure you have, as usual, a great day. It's a Monday morning. And even more importantly, have a great week.